Hello. Hey, everyone. We're going to get started. Shout out to Cole and Rachel for walking down the front row. Yes. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Max.
I'm Kurt.
We're from OneMethod. Yeah, we're hosting a craft event. Shout out, or thanks to ADCCs, of course. Tonight, who's here from the ADCC? I haven't met anyone. Yes. Thank you.
One guy.
In general, yeah, for just fostering creativity in Canada. That's such a it's so amazing. And then specifically for focusing on craft, which is great. Kurt and I have been, and our team's been talking about AI for literal years now. Really hyper focused since this year, and craft doesn't always come into the conversation. So it was really nice to take a lot of the work we've been thinking about and a lot of the work we've been doing and really focusing on craft. Yeah, so OneMethod's hosting. We're at the Combine, which is the space you're in right now. Thanks for joining us. The Combine is home to 5 different agencies, but also a bunch of different creatives in our community. And we host a bunch of events like this. There's a store, there's a cafe. It's a whole thing. And if you want to know more about it, hit me up at the bar after. But today, yeah, let's talk about today. Also, Kurt, the last time we talked about AI, we both played the straight man. It was pretty boring.
That's why we're not talking at the same time anymore.
But I feel like you got to bring it today.
All right. No pressure.
Okay. Why are we, OneMethod, talking about AI or what makes us believable? So OneMethod began 22 years ago. Amin, how many? Do some math. 22. And for over 2 decades, we've been intersecting design with digital. That's just been in our DNA. And I think literally in 2019, we created an AI strike force, which is 4 years ago. And I remember the final output of that, there was a great presentation we put together. And this was like my favorite slide from it, was beautifully designed. This was in 2019. These were all the different things that were manual or automated or AI driven. The only thing then was there were tools you could like optimize social, basically like headlines and some design layouts that would actually use AI. The rest of it was automated. And then we made this prediction for next year. So this was 4 years ago. We're like pretty close. We did pretty good. And then, so that was like a prediction. Then the final output, we were testing all the tools, and all the tools in 2019 were shit. Like they just weren't really helpful and they were expensive. So we didn't start using them, and then COVID hit and we just pressed pause. And then 4 years later, like November of last year, ChatGPT came out, and Amin, who's our founder, was like, we gotta fire up the strike force again. So we went all in, and now we have an AI group that Kurt leads, right? What do you call it? I don't know. Do you have a name for it?
It has no name.
Okay.
AI strike force.
So yeah, like, and then we've spent since basically January, been going pretty hard on it. We've got a team, and what we've done is we've basically taken everything that we've been doing since January and tried to filter it through the lens of craft, and we're going to share it with you today. So it'll be pretty chill.
And we're showing you this chart because I'm going to say about 100 times that we can't see the future and we don't know what's going to happen. But obviously we can see the future and we know exactly what's going to happen. So you can take this all to the bank.
Okay. And then, yeah, this talks about an hour. Then after the very end here, we're going to go to the bar and have a battle. We'll explain more about that in a bit. But in the next hour, if you want to use the bathrooms, just go that way and look right or left. You'll find one. Grab yourself a drink if you want during this talk. We're going to start with just nuts and bolts, just some fundamentals. Kurt's going to take you through some of the foundational work. Literally just basically back in January, you guys went deep into like what actually AI is made of and how are we using it today. Then we did a bunch of experiments. I'll take you through some of those, the high level of like what we learned from those. There were definitely some wins and losses. Then we've got a few OneMethod All-Stars going to come up and take you through some demos, how they've been using the tools, how they've been intersecting it with craft. Then Kurt's going to do like a broader POV on how AI intersects with craft. And then, like I said, over to the bar where we should have some food, I think some pizza, some drinks, non-alcoholic and alcoholic, and then an AI battle, which we're going to push you all to sign up for. Sound good?
Good.
Kurt, I asked you to not be a straight man. You've been a straight guy.
This is me set to maximum personality. Okay, so this part is pretty short. Fundamentals. We knew we'd have like a pretty diverse crowd here. Different people tried different stuff, so we tried to cover the basics really quick, and we've also got some context, and we're going to talk about some, oh my God, what happens when technology changes the whole world. I'm going to do it all in about 5 minutes, so buckle up. Historically, when big things happen, we tend to overestimate how much impact it's going to have in the short term and underestimate how much impact it'll have in the long term. So if you think about when cars showed up, I'm sure it blew everyone's mind. Electric horse, doesn't have to feed it, doesn't take 2 years to turn into something you can ride. It was going to change everything, but everyone was thinking about them in the context of the obvious, like it'll get me from here to there faster. I can do that now. And it was going to change everything, but it didn't change everything because they sucked and there were no roads anywhere and they broke down all the time and you kind of had to be a mechanic. And it took like a long time for cars to make a big difference in people's lives. But once it did start to make a big difference, I think we grossly underestimated it. No one, when cars came out, predicted a suburb, that just because you could get from A to B faster, that would completely change how we design cities and how we live, and that we would cover the landscape in highways and roads. And no one ever thought that like 3% of planet Earth's GDP would be people making just that, one product. Or especially maybe worse, that 15% of all the emissions that are related to climate change come from cars, trucks, and buses. Like, these things were not foreseen. So change, it's a big deal. Computers, same thing. When they started out, oh my God, it's a machine, it thinks, it's going to change everything. But for a long time, we didn't know what to do with it, right? Like, it could do math and science, and so we knew that was something you could apply it to, but it took decades before it really started to take off and make a big difference. And then we kind of figured out, oh, maybe I could use this thing to play a game. Or a decade after that, maybe this will make an impact in business. Who knows if computers will ever be useful for business? Still debatable. And then after that, I just like watching this because I'm 100 years old. Most of you are probably like, what is this? Did you make it? I did not. It's called Tron. It's amazing. But the idea that those computers could make something like this, just pull something out of your imagination. There's no way that it was even on anyone's radar remotely at the time when these were invented. Honestly, every time I do the dry run through this, like by myself, I just end up watching the whole clip. It's like 5 minutes long. We can't do that. Smartphones, they're only like 16 years old, I think. Like the real kind, not the shit kind that were around before. So now everyone has a supercomputer, literally what was classified as a supercomputer in your pocket. And it's done incredible things. Like, you can stay in touch with your friends and family anywhere on planet Earth, anytime you want, pretty much. When you tell someone you're going to meet them somewhere, you don't have to go anymore. Doesn't matter. You can just text them, I'm not going. Before, they'd just be waiting there. Be like, where the fuck are you? I don't know. But we also didn't foresee things like, screen addiction and increasing teen depression and attention deficit and all kinds of things that come with smartphones. Online bullying, like, I'm not down on smartphones. Like, I literally keep this thing about a foot from my head at all times, but they come with a lot of second and third order effects that are difficult to foresee. And then now, we've got AI, which is built off of the same, we're still in the computer arc, I guess, but maybe this is another one that's big enough to it's kind of count as its own generational shift sort of thing. And so now we're starting to think with that, what's that going to do? We have the obvious things we're looking at now, but what are the less obvious things that we should try and start to prepare for? So just really quickly, starting with now, just so we're all using the same vocabulary. Right now, we've got what we call like artificial narrow intelligence. So it's a thing, we can teach it to do a thing, it does that thing, but you can't just like plunk it off and get it to do something it has no idea how to do. It's still very tuned to a specific type of thing. And I know you're like, well, I can ask ChatGPT anything, but trust me, it's not quite there. Compared to this, right, which is the digital us. And artificial general intelligence, I don't know, next week, decade from now, I have no idea. No one seems to be able to agree, but that's us. That's when it's adaptable, it can evolve, maybe it's conscious. I think there's a lot of arguments that are happening now that are like, what does that even mean? And I don't know, so we won't get into that. Artificial superintelligence, that's like all hail robot overlords. It's smarter than us. Some people argue that something that is conscious, that much more intelligent, that much more everything isn't even possible. Again, I have no idea, not within the purview of tonight, but we figured we'd cover the spectrum. So that's AI today and going forward, but there's also a lot of AI that's been around for a while. So if you think about how they do testing for aerodynamics, they'll use a form of AI called evolutionary algorithms. If you think about traffic patterns, they've been using something called swarm intelligence for a long time to figure that out. A little closer to home, fuzzy logic. So when you have a thermostat on your wall, you can't just put in, you can, that's how some old crappy ones work, but the smart thermostats, there are a lot of variables that they don't know and they'll never know. Like if you say, well, I'm going to set the temperature to 72, and then your partner's like, you're an idiot, and they set it to 74. This thing's like, I don't know how many vents you have in your house. I don't know how well your house is insulated. I don't know how big it is. So I'm just going to turn the furnace on, then I'm going to try and figure out from how that's going. Like maybe I should turn it off here, and will it be warm enough that it'll stay at that temperature for a while? I don't know how it works. It's called fuzzy logic, but that's, again, it's not new. It's been around. I mean, it's newish, but it's not like the brand spanking new stuff. Which is this, machine learning. Has been around for a while, but there have been big breakthroughs. This is the stuff you probably read about, supervised, unsupervised, semi-supervised, deep learning. These are the things that have made us ChatGPT and Midjourney and DALL-E and all that fun stuff. So really quickly, the two big ones that we kind of see the most, large language models like ChatGPT. The reason we have this thing here, the best thing about AI is its ability to understand statistical relationships, is because at a very simple level, that's what these do. So when you ask it a question, you'll type in your gear, and it will take what you've written and it'll break it down into these things called tokens. Tokens are roughly 3 to 5 characters, and it'll parse that all out, and then it will use the bajillions of things it's been trained on to come back with an answer composed of these. It'll start with the first one, then tack on another, and so forth until it gets to the end result. It seems like magic, because I think it kind of is, but that's why a lot of the misconceptions about how AI works, I think, come from not just kind of accepting that base principle. So they match patterns. I didn't figure this out, someone else wrote this, but when you ask it a question, what you're really saying is, what sort of answers would people be likely to produce to questions that look like this? And it will tell you that. So if you ask it a general question like, can I get a marketing plan for my blah, blah, blah? It's like, sure, because there's a million people who've written about how to do marketing plans for blah, blah, blahs. But if you ask it a specific question, that's where it can struggle, right? So if you're saying, I asked it once, I don't know why I asked it this. I didn't really want to know, but so what's the largest hippopotamus ever captured? I was like, oh yeah, that's Mr. Beast, captured in 1961 in Nigeria, told me the weight, all this stuff. I don't think there's a Mr. Beast. I looked, and there seems to be no reference to Mr. Beast. So I think he got away. I don't know what happened, but it was very convincing, and that's how you can get fooled. And it's just because it's trying to give you an answer like an answer that should be the thing you asked for, if that makes sense. Then we have latent diffusion models. These are the image generating ones. They start with a field of noise, less detail even than that, just static. And through a process of discrimination, I think there's kind of two parts, like a Bert and Ernie thing, and they argue with each other about whether or not they're getting like closer or warmer or colder. It'll just keep adding fidelity until it gets to a point where it thinks, okay, I believe this matches the thing you asked for. And it works. Mostly. Like, I don't think this Chihuahua has a bottom. I think he's just a top, but he's got a hog. He doesn't care. So that's how those work. And those are the fundamentals. We wanted to just kind of set the baseline to get started. And now Max is going to walk you through our experiments.
Yeah, I'm back. How good was Kurt's thermostat dance?
Did I do a thermostat dance? Probably shouldn't have drank.
We've given a version of this presentation before. That was the first time we've seen the thermostat dance.
I've had 4 bubblies today.
So again, our team sort of learned the fundamentals and then started experimenting with all the tools. And the first thing we did was we looked at existing projects that we had completed without the help of AI, but then looked backwards and said, okay, what if we fed the same inputs, the same briefs and strategic thinking into these tools could we produce the same or better? And right out the gates, we were excited because we killed it. Like right out the gates, we did this project for La Carnita. So I don't know if anyone knows the La Carnita story. We created La Carnita in OneMethod's kitchen about 12 years ago. Kurt and I were cooking deep frying fish tacos, but we were selling tacos out of our studio kitchen, but because we couldn't legally sell tacos, we sold art prints. So we'd work with local artists, and we made all these different meatheads is what they were called. And the brief was really focused. We want you to make a meathead in whatever style you want, but then the output and the parameters were very broad. So we gave the same brief to Midjourney, and it kind of killed it. 5 of these are created by Midjourney, and with very little crafting too. This was like we just fed it the information, and it's back at us pretty good stuff. Can anyone tell? Anyone think they know what the fake ones are? What the Midjourney ones are? There's a couple tells, weird characters, like that don't really make sense for words. Like Nan Kyla is not in any language. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the 5 fake ones. The rest of them were all real, created by local Toronto artists that we sold.
I made this slide, and I keep forgetting which ones are the real ones.
So this was our first experiment. We were like, game over. Like this whole world is going to change. Then we went to our next experiment, which is for one of our bigger clients called Red Hat. And we had already made this and sold it to them and put it out in the world. So we're like, okay, we need to make these ebook covers. And we gave the brief, and I should say the other one took, like I think I mentioned, very little crafting. Like Midjourney just spit them out good. This, we had to do lots of crafting in post. So we took what Midjourney gave us, and we had to layer in a bunch of Photoshop and sort of editing after, and it still wasn't as good and didn't even make total sense, and took a lot of effort to get there and a lot of craft. So we were a little less stoked. And then things went downhill, and it was like terrifying. Can anyone guess the brand this is for? Anyone? No? Well, if you work here, you can't guess. Like, come on. So yeah, that's Colonel Sanders. It was like a KFC and basketball brief, and it was scary. So things just got worse. And like, yeah, how dumb is that tie? Yeah, it's the stupidest tie ever. Midjourney does not know how to do ties. So zooming out, we realized it was really helpful for us to get concepts or things where the ask was specific, but what it would output could be broad. And so it was helping us for bringing to life concepts in a very quick way. Here's some work for Audi, but like Audi doesn't put their logo on the inside of the hood, or I forget what this one was for, but this guy's hand just goes into his body. Yeah, so it was, and these were all helpful for us to like really quickly get ideas across, rapidly, and then it became part of our overall crafting experience. Like it was, instead of being the end craft output, it was more just, this is a tool within our regular crafting process that helps expedite this one area. So we had that, we learned this, and then we applied it. We went back to the KFC example, and we looked. This was the mood board so Narrative developed this amazing campaign, one of my favorites from last year, for KFC on building this basketball court in the winter. This was their mood board. This was done with finding existing images with a little bit of Photoshop, but not using AI. We did the same thing using AI tools, and it was like, okay, I can even see it even better. So this could help expedite and add a little more fidelity to our conceptual phase. But this stuff was still all just make-believe, but it was done really quickly and real high fidelity. And that's the output. So like the tools we were using gave a real good representation of the final output. And for us, it was pretty clear where it could fit in our creative process and where it fits in our crafting journey. The takeaways from this, this experiment, these 3 experiments happened in the spring, and it was clear to us like where we could use these things for thinking, writing, or designing. But really the key takeaway was it's not artificial for us. It wasn't replacing the end output. It was more just augmenting all the stuff we were already doing. So yeah, hopefully that was clear. Kurt, you would know if I miss anything, let me know. But otherwise,
you missed nothing.
Nothing. Okay, then I think we get into the demos and call on. I can't remember who's first here.
Jamie's first.
Jamie Kaiser.
Where are you?
You.
Come on, we can do better.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
Jesus,
Hey guys.
it's like you know him.
Is this on? Hey guys. As the slide says, my name is Jamie Kaiser. I'm a senior creative here at OneMethod and now an AI co-pilot. Fancy. All right. So today I'd like to show you this trend I've been seeing on social media of blending icons or memes with prompts to create optical illusions and a tool you can use at home. So what do we see here? Anybody see it? Want to squint real hard. All right, I think everybody said it. All right, obey. Good job. So, anybody see Michael Jackson? Yes. All right, we got a few more here. We got Batman. We got the Summer of Love. That's some kind of potato chip Elvis. Some of them are easier to make out. Some of them are way harder. So I made my own using a complicated method and an expensive computer, which took a long time. But then I found this link. It's called Illusion Diffusion. So this makes it way easier. I'm going to run a little demo here for you. I think. Is it running? There we go. Okay. So first, I grabbed OneMethod's logo. It works best with like a black and white, like chunky thing. Then I put in my prompt. Left it, negative prompt I just left as is. I hit run. And I sped this up. This is free. It's a little clunky, but boom. What was that, like a couple seconds? So with this idea, I made a proof of concept using OneMethod's logo and made this little animation. There we go. So it's scary how fast AI is democratizing the creation of ideas, just democratizing creativity itself. This took me a good part of a day, and that link I gave you does pretty much the same job for free. So if you want to scan this, I promise this should probably work. This will be exciting because tonight you can go home and some of you can do something you've never thought you'd do before. Something that was really hard for me can be really easy for you guys. All right. So that was the end of that. So everybody tell me when you're done.
Woo! All right. Next up, we got Anissa.
Hello, I am Anissa. I'm an art director at OneMethod, and I'm going to talk about AI and how I view it as this awesome new creative freedom. Yes, we all see AI as like really intimidating. It's so scary to bring into not only our craft but our daily lives. But it's so great. Just like, don't be afraid of it. Use it. I completely disagree with the fear of it. Like, at the end of the day, there's always going to be someone in front of the screen, so they can't take our jobs. We're still controlling them. Like, sure, you could search up cute dogs wearing tuxedos on Midjourney and you get this super cute photo. But I think that we need to figure out how to enhance these tools instead of just using them. Sure, they do stuff that's amazing, but how can we make it even better? AI tools are kind of like scissors. They work great in pairs. One side is still sharp, but they just don't cut it. Metaphors aside, using multiple AI tools in tandem is a great way to start exploring creative freedom in this area. All of these platforms literally speak the same robot language, so what better way to communicate than with each other? So I, as an art director, use Midjourney and Photoshop Beta the most together. So here's an example I did. I wanted a lizard on a skateboard. That's exactly what I got. After 15 tries, this was my favorite one, but the last time I checked, lizards don't have 3 arms. So I took it into Photoshop Beta, I took out that arm, I expanded the photo, and added in a little house for dramatic effect, just to make it an extra step. But if lizards aren't your thing, this is a more straightforward approach. I used this for a project recently. I needed an orange cocktail on a stainless steel counter, and every single time I tried to get that in Midjourney, it kept giving me wooden countertops. And I was like, this is so frustrating. I don't want to keep doing this for 30 minutes. So I just took it to Photoshop and I added it myself. Super simple, expanded out the photo, and it made it 10 times better. Now, those aren't the only tools that you can use to mix and match. Obviously, there's so many different AI tools that you can use. For example, you can go into ChatGPT and ask, what the heck is Art Deco for your next Midjourney prompt, and maybe it'll help you out there. Another way I like to utilize this combo is, as I said, having ChatGPT help you write prompts. I am not a copywriter by any means. I'm really bad at forming sentences, so ChatGPT can help with that. I just go in there, ramble on for a while, and then it kind of gives me something that's less of a jumble and more concise. As you can see in this example, it went from something so broad to something that I was visualizing in my head, something very specific. So yeah, these AI tools will not limit your creativity at all. They'll actually expand them. They do so many things, and once again, they speak the same language, so why wouldn't you use them together? It's common sense. I think that's a very brief nutshell of why AI is just this new and amazing creative freedom, and I love using it. And yeah, I think it's really exciting.
Woo!
And now I'm passing it to Jeff. Is Jeff here?
Thanks, Anissa. Hey, did Anissa get shortlisted for the ADCC Student Awards this week? Yes, she did. So good. Congrats, and thanks for that. I'm not Jeff. Jeff is our executive design director. His daughter is in the hospital getting stitches, which I originally thought he was just bullshitting to get out of this, but he actually provided lots of great notes, so I think he actually wanted to be here. And he was going to talk about a demo, how he built this thing called AI Battles that we're all going to do one after. You're all welcome to come participate or watch. And it was actually a really interesting application of AI and sort of integrating it with learning. And so his whole thing was, even the beginning of AI for him, just seeing it creep into his world as a design director, he felt like it was a battle. Instantly there was opposition and he was threatened by it. And I think his note was the first, I actually remember talking to us, the first time he saw it where it was sick. The first time when you saw something, you were like, holy shit, that was done in seconds by a computer program. It rattled him big time. And he was asking himself how did this happen? Is my job a job anymore? His first thought wasn't, am I going to get fired? It was more is my literal job going to be a thing? Will it exist in the future? What tech do I need to learn to harness this? And how can I sort of figure this thing out? And the more he talked to other people, he realized he was not alone. A lot of people had a lot of these sentiments. So him being a designer wanted to find a solution, and he quickly realized, he's I can't solve this in a big way, a bunch of these questions and these challenges I'm facing. So he's again, as a designer, how can I find a small way to help ease this and sort of find a solution? So he loved Photoshop battles. Anyone here? There's kind of an older thing, Photoshop battles, where there'd be a photo would fly around and different people would mess with it. There's different formats of it, but there's a subreddit dedicated to it. People would take an image and then just fuck with it in their own ways, often very funny, sometimes very creative, sometimes very janky. So he took this idea and he said, what if we do AI, Photoshop battles, but with Midjourney? And he came up with this concept called, the AI art battles. And it was such an amazing concept. The two people would sit down head to head. Behind them, there's TV screens, and you can watch them watch their prompts. They get given a prompt that he used ChatGPT to generate, so it was just random prompts. And then they would face off with each other for 5 minutes. And it was such an interesting concept because in 5 minutes, it really forces you to just go into the tool and just cram down your little crafting focus. You go through all sorts of different inputs and selections and narrowing to the end where you pick one final output. And the other thing was we noticed really quickly, people who are experts who spend all day using Midjourney, know all the special prompts, chaos to 100, aspect ratio this, all these like minutia, techie, esoteric things, they would perform the exact same or sometimes worse than people who did not understand any single aspect of it. And it was like real democratizing the way we create. So here's some examples. The prompt was werewolf wedding. Again, two people sitting down beside each other. They can't see what each other are doing. They're just going. These were the outputs. Alien karaoke, zombie yoga, penguin heist. Again, these are all ChatGPT. This one was like, one was like penguins doing the heist versus like a penguin heist, being like penguins being heisted. Spaghetti tornado. This one, marshmallow skies. Again, these people, they can't see each other. So in this case, one person was an expert, one person had never touched it, and they can't see each other. They both came up with something kind of similar. It's interesting. What was this one? Diamond Marsh, Cinematic Chaos, Vampire Surfer, Labyrinth Escape. I'm curious what today's are. So, and then here's a very controversial one. Invisible Bicycle. This one got no love in the moment. Everyone hated it, and over time, people have been gaining appreciation for it. So, I beg you all, anyone come watch, but also just come participate. It matters in no way if you're a designer or not, or have experience with Midjourney or not. It's just a fun, weird, little quick thing. And we don't do winners or losers. We just sort of see what you guys make. And yeah, so sorry, Jeff couldn't be here, but thanks for that. And Debbie, I think this is our last one. Or no, we have two more. Debbie, where are you at?
Hi. So while everyone else has been showing you really cool new AI wizardry, I'm going to share some of my favorite, terrible, awful AI creations. Here's Will Smith eating spaghetti. Yeah. And then here's Shrek posing with burgers made with his own flesh. And then here's Turkey Gravy Man. This one is actually kind of cool. Aside from the confused packaging with like Superman, and I counted like 6 different turkeys, like in various, states of doneness. But the figurine itself, I'm kind of into. The point is, yes, AI is so amazing. It's revolutionizing the way that we work, but at the same time, if you have a bad idea and not much talent, AI is going to make it that much worse versus better. So earlier this year, Rebecca Jennings, who's a journalist at Vox, was very inspired, but a little unsettled by the viral Harry Potter by Balenciaga video, which is this one. And this led her to question many things, including this. How far are we really from typing a few words into AI and it's spitting out an entire feature-length film? So she set out to try it herself. As someone with no visual AI or video editing background, she gathered all the AI tools the creator of this video used and mimicked the concept. Long story short, it was kind of terrible. Her concept, which is here, was Lord of the Rings if it was directed by Wes Anderson. And here's a snippet of how it turned out.
Good morning, Frodo. How are you feeling today?
Oh, hello, Gandalf. I'm fine, I guess. Just a bit worried about this ring.
Ah, yes, the ring. It's a dangerous thing, Frodo. But don't worry, I have a plan.
So nothing like what she, I think, envisioned or had in her brain. But the takeaway here is what makes this video good is the artistic instincts, aesthetic taste, and the cultural points of reference the creator weaves together to create something new and unique. And it's the idea, a good idea with the right creative instincts that make the difference. Because AI is just a tool, not unlike Photoshop or Illustrator or any of the tools that we use today to manifest our ideas. The difference between a good output versus a bad one is the craft a person applies to it. And AI provides creatives with opportunity now to really stretch the expression of our ideas in like multitudinal ways. A good example of this is Marvel's new show, The Secret Invasion. So this show is about shape-shifting aliens, and this title sequence was created using AI. So you can see some of the scenes are a little wonky, but what the creator did was lean into the wonkiness of where the technology is today and used it to enhance the storyline of the series. So it's equal parts sci-fi, mysterious, and creepy, which honestly is 95% of all AI output at this point. And I want to share one final example that I think is a very beautiful way of using AI where the storytelling is dependent on it. This is the IG account of a vintage shop that specializes in Japanese designer labels like Comme des Garçons, Yoji Yamamoto, and Issei Miyake. This is run by someone or a team of people who are clearly very passionate about these brands and Japanese fashion. What they're able to do with AI is explore their own obsession in creative ways to tell stories that would have not been possible otherwise. The imagery they create allow them to dive deep and really explore ideas of like color and volume and materiality, all based around Japanese fashion and culture, infused with the ethos of these three designers. And after I found this, I actually didn't know I needed to see fashionable Japanese elders dressed head to toe in calm, but now I can't live without it. So really, the need for good ideas, creative talent, and creative thinking is more relevant than ever because AI is only as good as we are. And then Jamie is back.
Oh God, he's back. All right. Hello, friends. So, we have a bar here, lovingly named Luigi's. And we decided to build an AI-powered cocktail bot for it. Luigi's, or Luigi AIs, it depends. So what's crazy is how it came to life so quickly and how it helped me invent itself. So if you stop in a bar tonight, which you should, you will notice that it's inventing drinks for this occasion. Here's a little case study that we made for it.
Neural net, backward chaining, cognitive computing, chatbots, machine learning. Artificial intelligence can feel scary. It's doing a lot and evolving quickly, but can it make you a drink? Inspired by our bar, Luigi's, we created Luigi AI, an AI-powered bartender. It creates unique drink recipes based on your name, our supply, and the internet's imagination. We started by MacGyvering a Raspberry Pi, ChatGPT, and some random office supplies. The tool analyzes usernames and our full bar stock. And in milliseconds prints out an entirely original, deeply personal, surprisingly thoughtful, generative cocktail recipe. New tech means change, but change can be fun, and it can make you a great cocktail. So to our new robot sidekicks, cheers. Cheers.
All right. So, How did we make this in a 4-day timeline from concept to party drink bot? We stressed out a lot. Then maybe we asked ChatGPT? But actually, that's what I did. I literally just asked it, could you make me a cocktail recipe bot? And it said yes. But there was a little more to it. I asked about 20 code-related questions, and they gave me surprisingly detailed and thorough answers. So detailed, so thorough, that it wrote about 70% of its own code. So they're like, okay, that's fine, whatever. But this was the only way we could have pulled this off. This was way more challenging than I could have normally have handled in such a short, stressful time. And AI bridged that knowledge gap. It bridged that psychological gap to make this idea into a working prototype. And here's the thing, it's still going, like right over there. Although at one point, it almost killed Max. But that's a story for another time. All right, cheers. Hopefully I see you at the bar.
I liked it in the case study video. We managed to get the jar of no-name bar cherries in there. That's good. Only the best awaits you in our bar, so get ready. It's going to be delicious. Okay, believe it or not, there is trying to connect all this together. So we'll see if that actually happens. I want to start with just a really quick little story. I think you guys all remember this place. It was called the Air Canada Centre, and then their time came to an end. Scotia had the opportunity to get the license for it, and they contacted us and said, we want to put our name and brand this thing, and yada, yada, yada. Team goes away, comes back, and when I saw what they did, it seemed a bit like a cop-out. It was like an anti-logo. If you've seen it, this is just a rendering, but the real one works the same way. When you come up to it, it's a giant TV screen, which then shows if you're going and it's Raptors, it's red, shows clips of the game. If you're going to see a concert, if you're going to see Leafs, it changes. And as I kind of looked at it, I realized, the creative insight that they had about putting your name on a stadium is that nobody gives a shit whose name is on the stadium. What they care about is what they're going to see, right? That's why you go. That's what you're excited about. And I looked at all the thinking that they did, and it was literally mapping the different approaches, what you would see as you got up to it. And the whole idea, like if you drive by there and it's blue, you know Leafs are playing that night. And that seeing the thing that you're pumped about in that brand association, that I can't think of a better way to get the value out of that relationship. So that's a really great solution, but it's based off of this kind of creative insight. And it made me think a little bit, kind of like, what is creativity? And I feel like that's something we should all be able to answer because we pretty much sell it and tell everybody that's what makes us special. But I don't know that there's necessarily a lot of really clear alignment about what creativity really is. And I think a lot of times when we think about it, is it the ability to make a beautiful layout or to write a clever turn of phrase or compose something? And I don't know, maybe, but what does that mean? What does creativity mean today? The world is getting a lot more complex. We know for marketers, it's bonkers. There's just this never-ending fracturing of channels, of tools. CMOs' jobs have ballooned into all kinds of stuff. There are new entrants, new subdomains. Like it's ridiculous. And fun fact, I asked ChatGPT what that looks like, and it was like, oh yeah, I got you. I said, an increasing complexity in the world of marketing, fragmented channels, never-ending flow, short-term goals. It was like, yeah, oranges exploding in your kitchen in a sea of milk. Obviously. For designers, it's the same problem. The complexity is there. Copyright. Who owns what? I keep thinking it's sort of like when, sampling and remixing was really like in hip hop in the early 90s, late 80s was like such a hot button issue. This is that on steroids. You can do more than just sample. You can completely appropriate, emulate. So there's a lot of questions there and more. As a designer, is it doing design? Is it bringing that insight, that use to it? I mean, I think these are challenging questions, and we're going to have new entrants. I made this in like 15 minutes, and I'm not very good. And if I can do it, a lot of people can do it. And so there'll be people with no training, no experience in practice, and they're going to be trying to use these tools. This is not new, right? I'll preface this, I'm 1,000 years old. When Quark Express came out in the 60s, everyone lost their minds, right? Oh my God, everyone can publish now. Like, designers are dead. And it turned out that I guess we lost the church bulletin business, but everything else pretty much stayed where it was. But this is more than that, right? And Photoshop, same thing. Suddenly it democratized design. And so now we're at this kind of new threshold where it's going to be even more intense. And also people who couldn't afford it before can. You couldn't do a photo shoot? No problem. You just make your own background. There's no alignment even amongst experts about how this complexity will manifest itself. This is a quote: artificial intelligence will replace half of jobs in the next decade. Big shock. This guy's a venture capitalist who invests in firms that make AI that will try to replace half of jobs in the next decade. So there's that. AI is dumber than a dog. That's the head of AI at Meta. So, his mission is to not freak you out. So sure, I guess. This one's my favorite one. AI could turn a calculator into a supercomputer, solving 1 million problems at the speed of 1 million cheetahs. That's the AI hyperbole generator. So that's what it thinks the answer is. I don't know how fast 1 million cheetahs is or if that's cumulative, but it feels fast. So we all know that AI is going to change things. We're not totally sure how. You've seen some things tonight, and we're trying to create some insights that maybe will just help you navigate it rather than just saying this is what's going to happen, because we're not sure. So one of the big themes that we think is a big takeaway that we've seen over the past few months is this idea of productivity tech versus creativity tech. And right now, the coverage, the stories, a lot of the chatter is about productivity tech. And that's because the companies who make these things tend to be technology companies, engineering companies. They're going to have this bias. And a lot of the coverage is being written for a business audience. We want you to invest. We want you to buy it. This is a kind of a no-brainer, sort of like the faster horse we were talking about before. But when we talk about productivity, I don't think it's any easier than creativity. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be like, let's really just examine everything. But there's a couple of concepts worth doing. And productivity is one of them. I've heard this great article where it was like, guys, don't worry about emails anymore. Just tell ChatGPT what you want to say. It'll write the email. You'll sound smart. You ship it off. Next article I read, good news. ChatGPT can finally take those long, boring emails you get and just summarize it and tell you what it's all about. So I don't know, is that productivity? We're just using a tool to both expand and then compress a communication between two people. Maybe. I don't feel like it is. I heard another one. I won't name names, but there was an advertising company that was gleefully describing this future hellscape they called infinite marketing, where you could use algorithms and all kinds of great techniques to go frolicking through people's privacy, figure out everything you could, analyze it, and then automatically generate a stream of never-ending personalized content for them. Yay! That sounds great. What could be wrong with that? But we've had all you can eat before, right? And have you ever gone, I'm stealing your thing, John, you ever go to Mandarin and leave and be like, I just made some good life decisions. That was great. I feel awesome. I don't think that's a great solution. I think we can do better. Paul Rand, who that is not, said good ideas rarely come in bunches. And I think that that's true. But I also think that this overriding narrative of productivity, it will be picked up by many people because it is obvious, it is an easy play. So if that happens, if AI will supercharge productivity, then what does that mean? And I don't think this is a big prediction. I think this is just, we've already seen it. First of all, there's going to be an explosion of content. And I use content in the broadest terms here. But when we can auto-generate things, a friend and colleague told me about, he was having lunch with someone whose business was taking a kind of spray and pray approach. And so they were just generating all this stuff. It was costing a few dollars per article, and it was automatically being posted to the different channels today. So I think while they were having coffee, he told me, I published 2 of them. And sure, but are those going to be effective. I think we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more kind of blands, things that are starting to these are all different toothbrushes. We're going to see more convergence. Something that sounds good, let's do it again and again and again. More homogeneity. Definitely more skepticism. And this term was coined an age of average. I'd like to point out, I did not make these. These are actual photos from Instagram. Why? I don't know. I assume algorithms like the backside of hats. But either way, now that I've really depressed the shit out of everybody, I was feeling that way. I was like, this is bad. This is really bad. We're going to live in this dystopia. But the more I looked at this stuff, the more I kind of was thinking like, these are outputs. This is just a thing. It's a deliverable. It's not creativity. When I think about what creativity is, it's this part, right? When someone says they want us to do something and they want to employ our creativity, that's where concepts are invented. That's where nuances apply. That's where iterations are done. That's where you exercise judgment as a person. I know that this is appropriate for these people in this context and that it's going to succeed for those reasons or there's a good chance of it. And AI doesn't do that for you. Similar to what Debbie says, I mean, it has no agency. So you still have to be the driving force behind it. Great. Okay, that's a bunch of stuff. We said a bunch of stuff. You've seen 150 demos. How do we take this all, put it together, and explain it to the people who give us money every day to do stuff? Well, let's go back to our good friend. This is still not Paul Rand. He said, it's no secret that the real world in which designer functions is not the world of art, but the world of buying and selling. So if you think of design as sort of art in the service of commerce, your job is to solve a problem. And this is the problem. The problem has just been described to you. How do we, as designers, as marketers, as strategists, how do we react in an appropriate way to this? And what we think is that in this world, what we do actually becomes twice as important, not less important. Brands matter more. And if you think about why would they matter more, well, what is a brand, right? It is relevance, it is differentiation, and it is trust. And those things all have to be real, they all have to be authentic, they all have to be true, or they don't work. So, good news. Like, we build brands, that's what we do, right? And a brand is a connection, right, between a company and or a person, a product and a person. So if you think about, sometimes going a little off script here. Sometimes we think about the fact that we own our brands. I'm a company and I own my brand. You don't own your brand. You have decided what you would like it to be, and then you create a product or a service and a store and a website and customer support and a million other things. And every time, Jimmy Bag of Donuts shows up and tries to use your thing, he's going to have a little shorthand in his head about what your brand really means. And that's who owns it, every single person who encounters it and how they decide what it is. So we use all of these things. We use our talents and our different perspectives and everything we've got to try and shape that process, to create it so that the brand that we're describing is authentic and actually delivers on what we promise people that it will. And that's craft, right? That's the craft of what we do. It's not just a clever turn of phrase or a good layout. It's the thinking behind it. It's the insight. It's the judgment and the nuance. And the good news is, I think that craft is sort of the solution to prospering in this world. Like, when you're going to have this age of average, it's sort of an opportunity in a way to stand out. We just said earlier, your bad ideas won't have a place to hide, but your good ones will. It's actually not true. Your bad ideas will have a place to hide now, because it used to be they were like, oh, that's shit. Now it'll just be like blend in. It'll just be like, oh yeah, that's normal. So that gives you a great option, right? You can get in there and actually kind of mix it up. So it's going to reshape how we work. What we do is going to change, but not the reason why we exist. The reason why we exist is probably twice as important as it was before. And so I would say that explaining this concept to our clients to help them understand why we need to double down on craft, why what we're doing is more important, and that we have to play the long game. Yes, you're going to have some always-on stuff. Yes, you're going to generate some basic clicks and this, that, and the other thing, but that's not the path to the winner's circle. That's table stakes. So if you're playing to win and not just sort of playing to play, then you have to take this a little bolder approach. And creativity is the only magic ingredient that's going to help you differentiate in that world. That's it. But before we go, AI battle, sign up. We got to start using less aggressive terms. We got like strike forces and battles, but I promise this is like a big like techno hug. No one will touch you. It's over in the bar. Sign up on the sheet. Have some fun. It's really good. Please go enjoy and have a drink. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.